You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really delighted to welcome my next guest who spent his career at the intersection of two worlds that rarely talk to each other. I'm talking about Fortune 500 consulting and grassroots impact investing. He's a strategist, a social entrepreneur, and a technologist. And his new book out right now. It's called Venture Philanthropy Blueprint. I want to welcome Alain Leroy to the show. Welcome, Alain.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm so glad to have you here to talk about what we can build together. I oftentimes say on this show and off air that I think we're in an era that begs for radical imagination. And so I want to tap into your imagination this hour. So let's get started. The premise of your book, because I think it names something a lot of us have felt but couldn't quite articulate. You say traditional philanthropy funds without execution, and venture capital scales without conscience. Break that down for our audience.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I appreciate it. So traditional venture capital, they're going for grand slams. They want grand slams. So you've heard of a concept called a unicorn. Mm-hmm. A unicorn means a startup reaches $1 billion within 3 to 5 years. So that's extraordinary. Maybe 1 out of 100 startups that get VC funding reach that status. But the other 99 don't make it, usually, right? Or maybe 10% of them reach something. And that's the model. That's the process. Traditional venture capital wants to produce. They want the unicorns to come out of the shadows, right? And that's the model. For good and for bad. Philanthropy tends to fund in the short term and not look at the long term. For example, we're giving away $1 million in grants to underrepresented entrepreneurs. That's amazing, right? You would think.
Yeah.
And after they hire an organization to find the right startups that pass their criteria and filter, and then they award a bunch of checks, and they take pictures with the entrepreneur, the big check. But if we checked in with the entrepreneur a year later or 2 years later, where are they now? So the focus is not necessarily on the results of, hey, did the inventions of the entrepreneur, are they now reaching the communities, solving the problems? Or did we just temporarily maybe change something with the entrepreneur, his situation, his family? But sometimes, that grant may also kind of, a year later, they may be in a worse position than they were before they got the money. So philanthropy, and I'm not saying let's stop giving away the grants. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that, so what happens to the entrepreneur? They want to make money, and they want to solve problems in communities. They may not reach $1 billion, or may not even aspire to reach $1 billion within 3 to 5 years. What if they reached $10 million a year? How many people out there would love to have a business that generates $10 million every year? That's like $1 million a month. That's a lot of money, actually, right? Or even $100 million a year. What's the model to grow and scale those startup ventures? Mm-hmm. Because that tends to be under the radar of traditional venture capital, because they're swinging for the fences. They want the grand slams. They want the unicorns. They want to reach $1 billion within 3 to 5 years. They want that company in their portfolio. And in order for that company to reach that, they have to adopt some tactics and strategies that would really cause them to walk away from their mission driven
Mm-hmm.
sort of mindset. Um, so that's essentially what we're tackling in the book. It's not to say, let's burn down the traditional system. What I'm saying is just that the traditional model is just not designed to grow and scale more impact driven ventures. So what is? And that's what we introduced in the book is, well, here's a model that is different, and that could be applied for both entrepreneurs. How
Mm-hmm.
do I do this? Even investors, how do I incorporate more impact into my portfolio? And then the third role, what we call, is the believers, the ecosystem leaders that are those super connectors. They're doing those events. They're bringing everybody together. So for all of those roles, we call them the three Bs: builders, backers, and believers. It's introducing a different mindset and model for building and scaling more impact-driven
Yeah.
startup ventures.
I mean, I really like that. Builders, backers, and believers. First of all, I love alliteration. It's easy to remember. But I think that really sums up what you shared quite nicely. I've got to ask you for the entrepreneurs, for our leaders, learners, and listeners that are entrepreneurs that are tapped in right now, who've got the vision. They've got the community trust, but they keep hitting the wall when it comes to capital. What's the first tool in the blueprint they should actually go use tomorrow?
Well, our model is three C's. That's what we say. It's capital was one, capacity is the other, and community is the third. What we advocate is having more of an infrastructure first approach, because a lot of us we tend to immediately we say we got to go raise capital, but we don't realize that if you don't have the capacity and the infrastructure, you're just going to flush that money down the toilet. So if we spend as much energy going out there trying to raise capital, building a foundational infrastructure for our venture to grow and scale, we believe that you'll get a lot further. And believe it or not, once you put that in the universe, right? Once you set your mind towards, hey man, I got to build my foundation, you will find that there's people around you actually with the skills to help you do that. Marketing people, how many skilled marketers are looking for jobs right now? People, salespeople, there's so much talent around us now, but I think a lot of us just focus on the wrong thing first. Because when you build a more solid infrastructure, and that infrastructure, it does require technology, right? We are living in a digital world, and a lot of us that have ventures that want to do good, that want to uplift communities, it requires technology to communicate with those people, to stay connected with those people. Imagine if you logged into Netflix tomorrow and they forgot who you were. Like you would be pissed off, right? Like, hey, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, I got to train this thing all over again, right? So in today's modern day, social enterprises require technology and infrastructure, and if the entrepreneur focuses on that first, we believe they will go a lot further in getting the
Yeah.
resources that they need to then scale and grow that solution to other communities.
Yeah, I definitely take your point there. And hopefully, for all the philanthropic leaders that are listening, it's just a reminder of how important those general operating dollars are. And I know how precious those dollars are. Those unrestricted dollars that allow for the people that are building their organization, know their organization the best, to be able to invest more in infrastructure and invest more in the things that are going to help them to sustain over time.
Right. I mean, what we say is, invest in the infrastructure, not the intent, right? So, what we need to do as a community is, like Motown, right? We need the Motown of social enterprises, right? We need the hit factory of social enterprises. And the tools are out there to allow us to spot the talent, identify those builders out there that have been anointed with the gift of being able to solve a problem, and provide them with the resources and systems and what we call growth operators, because they're not going to know how to build the system or what tool or technology to use and all that stuff. But I believe that the future of impact investing is to put that philanthropy into that infrastructure. And a
Yeah.
lot of us may think, well, hey, doesn't that exist? I mean, we think it does, but does it? So, an incubator and an accelerator, they put you in these 12 classes and it's amazing, but then you're back at home wondering what I do now. Like,
Hmm.
so there's still a gap there, right? Because they still don't know how to build it themselves. So we need to start leveraging that out. We already leverage out the lawyers and the accountants and the financial advisors. But when it comes to like the marketing and product development type stuff, which is super important for a social entrepreneur, we kind of say, hey, that's why we gave them money. But then they're just going to flush it down the toilet if they don't really have the capacity to really spend that the right way.
Hmm. In the book, you talk about building high trust ecosystems that basically outlast a single campaign or grant cycle. That phrase is doing a lot of work. Uh, Talk to me about why so many of our impact organizations burn bright for one grant cycle and then disappear.
Well, I think again, I think it's well, you're talking about the people delivering the funding or the people receiving it?
The people receiving it, the people delivering on the impact.
Right. So I think a lot of that is again that without the infrastructure. So like if you don't have the right people around you to execute, if you don't have like the growth operators that could help you to build the systems that you need, you don't necessarily know the tools to acquire. You may be spending that money the wrong way, and a lot of it is also we have to have a more of a what we say is make as much money as you can, because when you are a social entrepreneur and you make money, you use that money to help people, and then the money that you make could help more people, right? So
Yeah.
we
Oh,
say make money helping people, use that money to
yeah.
help more people.
Yeah.
So but your organization then we have to really understand that this is a business. We're solving a problem. Can I provide a solution people are willing to pay for? And that also allows you to be a little more independent, because a lot of our
Yeah.
organizations,
Hold
we
that.
kind of
Actually, Alan, hold that thought.
yeah.
When we come forward, I want to talk about different case studies and templates that are in the book, because I know a lot of folks who are listening are already reaching for a pen. So don't go anywhere. When we come forward more with our very special guest, Alain Leroy, author of Venture Philanthropy Blueprint. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really delighted to be in conversation with Alain Leroy. He is the author of Venture Philanthropy Blueprint. Alan, before the break, we were talking trust. Now let's get technical, because the book is in 9 parts. It has 9 parts and frameworks and case studies and actual templates. I'm looking forward to geeking out over it as I prepare for classes at Pepperdine in the fall. But walk me through one case study that you think proves that this model works in the real world.
Sure. So one of the founders that I had worked with in like 2020, he was building a social, kind of like a social club for men of color. And he had some success and he had a physical location, but then COVID hit. So he had to transition to a digital model. and I was there to help him through that because I was my background is in technology, software engineering, branding, marketing. So, but it wasn't easy. But he had to adopt some technologies, right, to enable him to reach out and stay in contact with his members, and then also reach people outside of just Brooklyn, New York. So we grew to service members across 4 different countries during the pandemic, and started to do digital events. It's a safe space for men of color because his premise is men of color tend to grow in isolation, and that doesn't work out, right? So he's still operating today, but this is an example of me coming in to assist him, kind of serving as his kind of growth operator, helping him to establish the systems. Because what he figured out is how to speak to us, right? How to speak to men of color, identifying the problems that they're identifying, and delivering a solution that allowed them to join a community where it's just a safe space, right? So he figured that part out, right? So the entrepreneur needs to show up with an idea of what the solution is, and probably also have some validation before we could strap you to a rocket that allows you to now spread that solution across a broader spectrum of people. And sometimes just the entrepreneurs, they're not tech savvy, or they don't really, understand how to necessarily do that. So that's one example. And then we actually also winded up raising capital from the members themselves. So when you dig into the brand or the identity and what it stands for, so he turned around and offered the members an opportunity to take a stake in the company. So his valuation shot up to $10 million within like 6 to 8 months. So that's another, and that wouldn't have happened if we didn't really put the time into to really more solidify his foundation and infrastructure.
I mean, that's definitely the recurring theme that I keep hearing from you this hour, is that folks really shouldn't underestimate the power of spending the time to develop the infrastructure, get the foundation right, because there's a direct correlation between getting your foundation right, getting that infrastructure right, and being able to ingest a whole lot of capital all at once, and to be able to deploy that capital to actually grow the enterprise. And so for young founders out there, some of which you may still be working a 9 to 5, building their enterprise on nights and weekends, what does measuring what actually matters, what does that look like if it's not just chasing a grant report metric?
Well, measuring what matters, first of all, what is it that matters, right? So, and that usually starts at what problem are you solving? And that's also where a lot of people don't spend enough time on. So what problem are you solving as an entrepreneur, as a business? Business makes money by solving problems, delivering a solution people are willing to pay for. So start there, right? And then the metrics kind of show up, right? But it's connected to the problem you're solving, right? So, for example, in the case study, men of color grow in isolation, helping men of color reach their full potential, which is a huge, it's a huge umbrella. So it starts there, and then the measurements they kind of show up. I mean, we have to research it. There's based on the industry. Is it wellness? Is it wealth? Is it education? Is it a climate, environment? There's going to be some metrics that are already out there. If you're growing your community, then it's okay. How many members do I have? How many emails do I have? How many people are attending my events? How many people are actually purchasing my product? How long does it take for me to convert somebody from the moment they learn about me to showing up at an event or buying the product? All of those things are ways to measure your progress. But you can't measure the data you don't have
Mm-hmm.
either. So, how do I know that my conversion rate is 10% and that sucks? It's because you know how many people, expressed interest, and then you know how many of those people actually did something else, and you know how many of those people, it's kind of like a funnel, right? It starts wide and then it
Mm-hmm.
narrows in. That's just the way it is. But you need to have kind of the infrastructure and the systems in place to be able to track and monitor all that. And sometimes, it could start with spreadsheets and stuff. But you got to understand kind of your process, the problem you're solving. And then we could work towards building that out with the right infrastructure and systems. There's a lot at stake here. I'm a father. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and that's kind of why I'm doing all this in the first place. Like, because I think the world could be a better place, and I believe that the way to change the world is through the entrepreneurs that have the solutions to solve the problems in the communities. So if we're not building the infrastructure and the programs and the systems to allow the entrepreneurs' inventions to reach the people, we're going to stay frozen in this state of just not being happy about anything. And unfortunately, the traditional system for startups and ventures are just not designed to really strap these social entrepreneurs to rockets. So that's why I wrote the book. At the end of the day, is let's change this world for the next generation that's coming up. And the entrepreneurs have the ideas and the solutions. For some reason, their products and services are just they're not getting out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's great. And, I teach in the social entrepreneurship uh, graduate program at Pepperdine. And so everything you're saying is sort of music to my ears. And there's a lot of academic text to back it up, in addition to what you have in this book. I've got to ask you about AI. There are
Yeah,
so many folks that believe that artificial intelligence offers so much promise for entrepreneurs in terms of their ability to, scale their business, in terms of opportunities for them to, manage their business more efficiently and more effectively. What are some of your go-to AI tools and platforms? And for our leaders, learners, and listeners out there that are entrepreneurs, is there a particular AI tool where you're like, look, if I had to pick one to like really not just invest in, but to master, it would be this one?
well, I just think about, in general, generative AI, right? Which is when you hear about like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini from Google, or Copilot from Microsoft. Every major brand kind of has their own version of it. Um, it's those is where definitely start there. Um, and then as you layer that, there's more about agentive AI, like AI agents that could do a series of things for you if kind of programmed properly. They could take action automatically. But start with generative AI because, like, for example, all the entrepreneurs I work with now, I use and we use together in these programs generative AI, right? Now, you have to know how to ask the question, though, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So, this is why it's really super important to understand the problem you're solving, because now you could use these tools to really get underneath that. Um, like, once you understand the problem you're solving, you could put some prompts out there to get more information back about that, to validate who the target audience should be. You could even ask, it's kind of like a thought partner that's operating 24/7, You could wake up at 2 a.m., right? Enter a question. It's not going to scream at you. It's not going to talk back at you. All the
It's
answers are
not gonna
not going
quit
to
on the
be,
job.
it's not going to quit on the job. But it's amazing at helping entrepreneurs to then start to, when you have an understanding of problem you're solving, the audience, now you could even use it to generate content. You
Yeah.
have to send out emails. You have to generate social media posts and prompts. You could ask suggestions for what the campaign should be. So it definitely gives now an entrepreneur much more capacity um, than what existed before. And then there's all kinds of other things as well, right? We're right now we're at the end of we're building out an AI to help entrepreneurs based on the principles and philosophy of venture philanthropy blueprint. I mean, I have over 30 years of experience in the corporate streets, right? I was doing consulting for major corporations. I had my own startups along the way, and since 2020, I've worked with over 500 founders, investors. So there's so much content that I have in my head. I'm getting it out first in the book, but also now training in AI so that you could, when you're teaching your students at Pepperdine, you could be like, hey, let's use this tool, see what it has to say. And if, maybe not everybody's going to be down with, the philosophy that's here, because we're focused on social enterprises. And I also teach a social enterprise course. And I've put this out to my students, and the feedback that I get from them is the mindset shift of, you're right in thinking about infrastructure first, because we tend to, again, be on the chase for capital. And what I say is, you don't need money. Money needs your ideas. And that's a whole shift in the way you think of and your approach. If you have a venture and you have a startup, focus on building that idea out. And if it's a viable idea, the resources, you're going to attract the resources to it, right? As opposed to investing dollars and money and time on your financial projections built on nothing because you don't have the infrastructure. So that's kind of what I say, right? And so generative AI is definitely where to start. I tend to use ChatGPT because that's just what I've been doing. But there's other tools out there like Claude. There's CRM systems, which I highly recommend for entrepreneurs, that allows you to think about the way that you're communicating with your customers and help you to automate that so that you don't have to answer every phone call, every text message. This stuff is happening while you're sleeping. People could book time with you at any moment. You have the calendar, they're booking it. You just get a text that says, hey, you have a meeting, tomorrow at 2:00. Sweet. You know what I'm saying? So like that is really the way to go. And a lot of these tools these days are affordable. You don't have to spend $10,000 a month on Salesforce. There's other things out there that could help you to kind of start out with that base infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, our thanks to you, sir, Alain Leroy, the author of Venture Philanthropy Blueprint. It's available now, and I mean this. It's a working document. It's not a coffee table book. Put it to use. Alain, thank you for being here, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to bring you to Pepperdine to talk to some of my students in the fall.
Oh, let's do it. Thank you.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, a story that actually made me smile today. Turns out that flexible work isn't just a tech bro buzzword. It just solved a real problem on a factory floor. We're going to tell you all about that when we come forward.